All right, we're live. Hey guys, this is Megan again, Cooking Healthy in Indian Country. Just wanted to start off, if you're taking this class, whether you're helping an elder or you're taking it as a community member, please comment on the feed that you're here so that we know we can keep the tab and make sure that you're here the whole time. What I recommend for those that are joining in with us to please ask questions throughout the whole time so that we know that you're engaged and kind of understanding what's going on. So as many as you know, like what I said is I'd like to teach about how to make spaghetti sauce. Right now we're like inundated with tons and tons of tomatoes coming out of the garden, you know, peppers and onions, all kinds of good stuff galore. And you can only make so much salsa, but you can never like have enough sauce, right? Everybody loves spaghetti. We love it. We eat it like all the time. And so I just thought it'd be good to kind of show you guys like the simple ways to make sauce and how to like how it could be really easy to do. So first to start off, I wanted to thank our funders. I wanted to thank the Native American Ag Fund, CalFresh, and also USDA for providing these resources for our community, and also for, you know, to be able to be flexible during this time of COVID. You know, when this all started back in March for us, you know, it was kind of like, how are we going to switch our whole way that we do things? And I'm really appreciative of all of you guys that have been working with the RCD and doing these lives with us. I really wish we could do some in-person stuff, but we know the times that we're in, so it's really difficult. So I appreciate, you know, the flexibility of our community. You know, when it comes to these lives, one good thing is it will be posted on the Cooking Healthy in Indian Country page after we're done. But also, you know, if your internet is spotty, it glitches or something goes on with it, then you can just be like, I'll go watch it later, especially if you're joining in. We live in Hoopa. It's real rural, so the internet's not always the best, so bear with us. We know that it's gonna like jump in and out, but just bear along with us, okay? So first things first, we're gonna go over safety and sanitation. So I'm gonna be using quart jars. These are ball, smooth side quart jars. Basically what I did is I washed them they're brand new, so I took them out of the package and I washed them in bleach and soapy water. So hot soapy bleach water, sanitize them, wash the inside of them out, and then here we are. Same thing with the lids. I washed and boiled those, and I put them right here, and here we are. The quart jar is larger, obviously, but it's also ideal for spaghetti sauce or any type of big sauces that you're doing, because like for one of these for our family, we will use one or two of them for spaghetti night, you know, so this works really perfect for larger families. If you have smaller families, and you don't need to utilize a big jar like this, you can use pint jars. Anything smaller, you can't use this recipe for. So either quart or pint when you're processing it. Now this jar, the makeup of it, this is the base of the jar. So all that is the base, and this is the headspace of the jar. So when we go through recipes, a lot of the recipes will say headspace on the jar. So if it says 1 inch headspace, that is 1 inch headspace. If it says 1/4 inch headspace, that's 1/4 inch. You go to the middle, that's a 1/2 inch. So that's directly to the middle of that first ring right there, the top of that rim, that's a 1/2 inch headspace. You go to the top, that's 3/4 inch headspace. So whatever it says on your headspace, that's what it is. You can get a headspace measuring tool, and it basically kind of sits alongside the jar, and it'll show you if you're not okay with trying to eye it. I just eye it because, you know, that's how I've been doing it for so long. I can eye it. Then you have your lid and your ring. This lid has a gasket around it. That's a one-time use gasket. You can't reuse it. You can reuse it to store after you've opened whatever is in the jar, but you cannot reuse it. The ring, you can reuse this over and over and over again. I recommend if you have like, yeah.
May Gibson asked, does bleach and dish soap counteract each other? I heard this.
Not that I don't. I've always used bleachy water or dish soapy water, so as far as I know, it doesn't counteract. Is that good? Okay, so the ring you can reuse over and over, but if you see rust on that ring, you might want to just toss it out and not use it again. So we got those all cleaned and sanitized. I'm gonna grab out my other tools that are super important that I forgot to grab. Oh. Okay, so the jar, basically that's the makeup. The tools that you have to have, that you must get if you're gonna become a canner, is this guy. This is a jar lifter. You can't can without it. It just is, it's a safety thing. And the meaning of that is this thing will pick up and move jars when they're hot liquid inside. You try to pick this up with your hand and there's something hot inside, burn your hand. If you try to pick this up with forks, you're gonna drop it and burn your whole body. So this thing you cannot not can with. This thing is very important. And I always tell people, once they use these, after the stuff is in it, you're more like a robot when you're moving whatever's in it, that full product. You're like a robot, you move it back and forth just like that. So you gotta have a jar lifter. The next thing is, it's super important, is a funnel. These funnels, you know, especially during this time when we're gonna be making sauce. Sauce is really messy and it's, you know, basically it'll stain your clothes too. And if you don't have the funnel, that sauce can splash all around the top. So the funnel is really important too. This is also a really cool gadget. If you're canning tomatoes, this thing is really neat. With if it's whole tomatoes, you take it and you move around into the jar to get all of your air bubbles out of your tomatoes. So this is, I always call it a, I don't know, magnetic, knifey bubble, debubbler thing. I don't know the exact terminology for it. But one of the coolest things that it has is the magnet. So when if you boiled your lids, you have this thing right here and you can grab your lids out, just like that. You don't have to touch it. You can put it right on top of your jar or whatever. It's a pretty neat little tool. I love it. It's a great thing to have. And so if you're taking the class as an elder, and if you're taking the class as a community member, you will get a kit with this stuff in it. So this comes right along with your kit. Go ahead, Robert.
Brenton Manzares asks, is headspace absolutely critical?
It is, especially when you're doing like meats and stuff. It's really critical because if you do the wrong headspace and like say you overstuff this jar right here with fish, right? And you put it up to there where the fish or deer meat or any of those meat type things, say 1 inch headspace, and you overstuff that, all that meat grease is going to compromise your seal. Could be the same with sauces too. Is it could compromise the seal. So that's why it's important for the headspace, is because each one of these items, they react differently either under pressure or when you process them, if it's a water bath canner. So you don't want any type of that, whatever's in that jar, to compromise the seal.
Yeah, it needs a little bit of air to release at the same time.
Exactly. Okay, so we're gonna go over our canner. So if Robert wants to kind of put the video over here. This right here is one of Megan's favorite things. Why? It's because it's the Cadillac of canners. This is an all-American canner. I love this thing. You can put 64 pint jars into this thing. It is, or 32 pint jars. You can layer it 3 times with pint. This thing is a 64 quart canner. It is basically like a cast iron. So what that means is cast iron, if you're familiar with it, it heats the entire thing evenly. The aluminum canners, they're great, but you're really a lot of the time going back and forth with trying to get that heat at the right spot. This right here, most of the time I turn the heat down 1 time and it regulates itself. It's awesome, it's phenomenal. I love that. And the other reason why I love it is because of this lid. So this lid, on most canners, you would have a gasket right here around the lid. Well, this one you do not have to have a gasket because it has these fancy little knobs. On any type of pressure canner, you can either use they call it a rattle canner, which is basically kind of a ticks back and forth. Those are the old style canners, and they would just tick, 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 tick. Or there's a gauge. So the Radlers, basically how you use those is you put the weighted top that you want to have on your canner, and then it won't go above that. And if it starts going above it, it's going to tick really fast and make that that right here on that spout, it's going to tick vibrantly, and you'll know like you need to turn or regulate your heat. I don't really like those ones. I rather like the gauge ones, so I can see like where my pressure is at. So you can see the little gauge, and basically that's the top of your canner. This one only has one blow gasket. They call them blow gaskets because this thing blows first before your pressure canner blows up. Robert?
Jericho Lame Bear asks, where can I find a canner like that?
You know, you can order them online. Look for All American Canner. They run about $400 to $600.
It's worth it though.
It's so worth it. Like, I mean, that's one thing that, like, because I'm like a serious canner, and so like I can as much as anything, right? And so what helps me, being a mother of 6 kids and right now working from home and doing all these Zoom stuff, is buying stuff that makes my life easier. So this right here, you can double stack these quarts in here. I can get done with this way faster than if I had a smaller canner. So they're worth it. Yeah.
When you double stack, do you put something in between to divide them?
Yes, you can do, since this is a big one, it doesn't really come with a lot of options. You can just use a rag, just like that. You put it over the top of your jars, just like that. I'm gonna tell you the truth, I don't do that. I just put them in there. So, we went over the canner, and then we're gonna go over the saucer. Yeah? Oh, yep, come on over here. So, everybody, if you have a KitchenAid, so we're making spaghetti sauce today. Having a KitchenAid is like, this thing can do a lot of different things besides just doing the, you know, using it for just baking. You can get attachments, and so one of my favorite attachments is the sauce attachment. So this is the hopper, and then inside the hopper you can see that this is a little gadget that holds in the spindle, and so that attaches in here to that, and then you tie it on. You put your spindle on here, just like that. Now this right here is just like what they used to use back in the day. It's like a sieve. Basically, if you were to do this and you didn't have this type of electrical equipment, you would have this big colander that looks just like this, and you'd have a stick, and you just basically use your muscle and push it all through that sieve.
Like a
well,
hand
this right here, it does all that work for you. So it goes into that, and then you push it down. You take your ring, and then you just tighten it on. Got to make sure it lines up. Once that's tightened on, then you put this guy on here. There's a little hole on the back, so you line up that hole. And then that sits on there like that. And then you just line it up to your KitchenAid, put it in there, tighten it down, make sure you adjust this to make sure it's nice and even. You put this is a splash guard on top of that. And what I do is I'll have it right here every time, and then I usually have a huge jar, which I have these half-gallon jars, and I'll put that half-gallon jar right here, and I'll catch all the sauce, while all the skin, the seeds, all the stuff that is not good on the tomato will pop out right here. These run about $100, so if you can't afford a nice Cadillac saucer, you can use this guy right here. But we're going to talk about the saucer that we do have. Sorry, Graham. I got live audience with me today, my Graham and Auntie. Woo-hoo! So, with this one right here, if Robert wants to go and, you got it? This is a ball saucer. This thing is the Cadillac of saucers, so I like Cadillac stuff. That's my style. This is the Cadillac. Basically, this is where the discarded material comes from. There's the sieve right here, and then there's that roller back here. It basically does the exact same thing as the KitchenAid does. It just does it a lot nicer. It's super easy to clean. That one is cool to clean, but it's not super easy to clean. So this thing is the Cadillac decanters. These run you a couple $100, up $250 to $300, but they are awesome. This actually belongs to the program, the Columbia Trinity Resource Conservation District. Once the market building is open and the kitchen is open, this will be available there at the market building. So, you know, once that community asset's available, they're gonna have this saucer there. They're also gonna have more of these canners there. So we're hoping to have people come in and start utilizing those things for value-added product and storing up these foods, right? Okay, now on to the recipe. So I showed you all my tools, all my gadgets. Now I'm gonna show you the recipe. This book, oh, go ahead, Robert.
Glenn Moore asked at the beginning of the live, what are the best tomatoes to use for sauce?
Basically, the most ripened tomatoes. So I got these tomatoes from O'Gorman. I fish traded them some salmon, and he gave me 3 boxes of his best tomatoes, which are the mushier ones. And then he also gave me peppers and onions and basil and garlic. He had it all. So I fish traded them some stuff like that. And basically, the best ones, you can use Romas, they're really good, but you can just have a mixture. Mainly, it's the ripened one is what you want. Okay, so being a master food preserver, they gave us this book. It's called So Easy to Preserve. This book is phenomenal for many reasons. It doesn't only just have like water bath canning or, sorry, I got my water boiling. Okay, it's not only has water bath canning, it has pressure canning, it has dehydrating, it has fermentation, it has freezing. So it's like an all-encompassing preservation book. It has really good recipes in it, but one of the best things about this book is it was developed by the University of Georgia. And so every single one of these recipes have been scientifically tested. What that means is what we're putting into this jar right here, the core of that product is going to be okay and safe for consumption against foodborne illnesses. We all want to be able to can, right? And we all want to be able to give our family safe food to eat, right? And so this is what verified recipes are for. So they have 2 recipes. There's the spaghetti sauce without meat and the spaghetti sauce with meat. And basically they have different processing times. Both processing has to be in a pressure canner. Go ahead, Robert.
Can you show it again? Because I didn't get the whole page, just in case someone wants to screenshot it.
Oh, the page?
Yeah.
Okay, let me go back.
See, that's good.
Robert's my cameraman today. Usually have Emily behind the camera, so we got Robert, the can man. And he can actually answer some of your questions too, because he's actually a certified master food preserver too as well. And so if you have questions about the processes of this, you can ask him. What we're mainly trying to do when we're canning, and you're like, okay, Megan, you know, how do I know to use a pressure canner? How do I know to use a water bath canner? Everything seems the same. Well, there's differences in the pH level. So if your pH is higher or lower, the higher acidic foods, which are the 4.6 and below, which is weird, I know. So it's 4.6 and below, that's the higher acidic foods. Those foods can be water bath canned. When it comes to the lower acidic foods, which are 5.0 to 14, oh sorry, the higher acidics are this way, the lower acidics this way. That is your pressure candidates. Because we are, even though tomatoes are highly acidic, and a lot of these vegetables that we're using are highly acidic, it's because we're utilizing so many different of ingredients here that you have to use the pressure canner to make sure it's all safe. Robert? Oh, you had a question or you wanted to add
No,
a comment?
I'm good.
Okay, so right here, let's talk about how I got onto doing the tomato sauce. I take all these ripe tomatoes. You guys see it? All these ripe tomatoes right here, and I basically wash them all up. Oh, I need that, Andy. Oh, I need that too. So I usually wash them all up. I got so many sous chefs today. It's so nice to have them. And so I just wash them up and I put them in here. You don't have to slip the skins. You don't have to take anything out. You just wash them out and put them in here. One thing that you do need to do is just basically get rid of as much liquid off of these. I let this cook overnight. And I left it on like 350 for a while, and then I left it on like warm overnight just to stew down these tomatoes. And it's just an easy, simple way to do it. Go ahead, Robert.
How much did you fill up the cooker?
It's 30 pounds is what the recipe calls for. And so I just basically did a 30-pound box of them and just filled it up to the top. Once I put all those tomatoes in there, I sprinkled a lot of salt over the top because I like that flavor in there. And also salt's your preservative. And so basically, I just did that. And now I am taking all the excess juice out of there. You really want that out of there. If you don't discard the excess juice, just be prepared to have really watered down sauce, which is not bad. It's not bad at all. I don't add water to this. This is all water from inside the tomatoes. And so it creates a ton of water, basically all the water that's coming off of the tomatoes from growing, right? And so, once you get all this out, as much as you can, you're really just getting pure tomato meat in your sauce. So that's what's cool about this.
Now, is there something you can do with the water, or is it just no good now?
I just discard it. Mainly because it's just not anything really to use it for later. I know that there's some people that like this type of juice. I know my grandpa, he likes the stewed tomatoes and stuff. He makes a goulash with it. And mainly it's like basically it's kind of like a tomato macaroni soup. Robert?
May Gibson asks, that's a toaster oven type thing?
Yep, it's a turkey oven, yep. It's so easy to do it. And if you don't have a turkey oven, use a crock pot. The recipe calls for you to use a pot, but I'm just a creature of easy. I like to do things that are not so hard, so this is my easy way to do it.
Work smarter, not harder.
Work smarter, not harder. Exactly. Okay, so I get all that juice out of there, and I just basically, try to when I'm feeding it into the machine, I try to just kind of, easily dump it out of there as much as I can. Okay, so now we're gonna start the process of saucing. This is the satisfying part. Go for it, Robert.
They were asking if it was an electric roaster.
Yes, it's an electric turkey roaster. Yep. Okay, so what you do, you want to come over here to this? Well,
Give me two.
see. I can do it this way so that you can see it. They're going to want to see this. They're going to want to see this because it's satisfying. You can probably go.
I can just put it right here.
Can you see it? Right to here is where we want it. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, so now we turn our ball saucer on. There's two different settings. So there's a forward setting and there's a reverse setting. Just in case something was like backing up, you can reverse it and kind of fix it. But basically I've not had that problem yet. So pray today that doesn't become a problem. I'm just gonna turn it on. It goes nice and fast. I'm just gonna start feeding it. It's gonna start pumping out. It's gonna look really liquidy in the beginning, but don't worry because you're gonna get a lot of meat coming out of that here pretty soon. Now this has a tool that you can feed the hopper. So this hopper right here, you can start pushing it down. As you can see, all the sauce is coming out. Super satisfying, really neat. Now, on this side, this end, we're gonna start seeing it basically start spitting out all of those seeds and those skins. If you got questions too, Auntie or Grandma, you guys can ask questions.
That's your pulp coming out of the.
Yep, that's all the
the
pulp,
pulp.
and it's gonna be pretty dry too. It's not gonna be a lot really wet. It's
Pretty cool.
squeezing out all of the juices and stuff into this part, and you can see how thick it is.
So are you going to cook that sauce?
Yeah, we're gonna simmer it. Yep, yep,
Before you jar it?
yep.
Most
Uh-huh.
recipes call for you to pre-cook your ingredients.
Okay, so I just keep feeding this in, just like that. And this thing is awesome. It's like the best invention. So, like I said before, you know, our grandmothers and our aunties and your great grandmothers, they had a lot of strength in their arms, you can tell, because they used to mush this in a sieve themselves. Could you just imagine doing this amount of tomatoes at one time?
And you said that was a 30-pound box of tomatoes.
It just melted all the way down.
Now, how many jars are you guesstimated to get out of that?
I think I'll get probably, let's see, out of that,
12.
because I did one, I'll probably get about 5 jars. Yeah. Which is not too bad, but you know, this is basically another good way to deal with your tomatoes. Now, a lot of people might be thinking like, well, what are you gonna do with all that pulp, Megan? Good thing I have pigs. I'll throw that to the pigs, they'll enjoy that. If you have chickens, throw it out to your chickens. But if you don't have any of those things, compost it. Put it in the compost pile and use it for later. So it's just gonna keep, it's basically doing this super, super fast. And it's pretty cool. Robert, you gonna come over here and show where that, what it's spitting out? Video of what it's spitting out?
Now, will the sauce get thicker, Megan, as you cook it?
Yep,
Will it get-
yep. You'll start to basically evaporate all that juices. So it's pretty satisfying, huh? And you see how thick it's coming out right here. Oh, sorry, Graham.
Carmelie Begay asks, if you don't have a saucer, you can use a mash or blend with a blender. Can you?
Yeah, you can blend with a blender. You can puree it. And if you puree it, it's just going to basically puree up those seeds and stuff. But with that method, you will have to slip the skins. Or it's good to slip the skins. If not, you'll have a bunch of floating skins in your sauce when you open it. Tons of floating skins.
Don't want that.
Yeah. As you can see, all this meat right here on these tomatoes. You want to zoom in? Right here, that's all meat. And then, you know, when you have these super ripe tomatoes like that, there's a lot of good sauce that can be created by it. And it's just basically not any time. Look at how many minutes it took me just to feed this. And look how empty it is over here. Robert, you want to lift it up so you can show them how empty it is?
This thing was pretty much full when
Yep.
she started.
Not very hard now to get all this done. I'm just going to keep feeding it away.
If someone were to buy this machine, where can they get it?
Usually online, you can probably find it on Amazon. The last time I checked, they didn't have one. But you can also get them like at Ace Hardware or a hardware store. They usually carry a bunch of canning stuff. Walmart, you can go online. I know our Eureka Walmart sucks. It has nothing absolutely there. But if you know, you have ability, if you're not in our area, go to Walmart, check out their canning section and see if they have one of these nice little tools right here. I'm saying, if you want a can, make yourself easier for yourself, because it's already going to take you a whole heck of a lot just to grow this, right? It's going to be time consuming, you're going to be back breaking. When you're processing this stuff, make it easier on yourself, and this is what happens. Okay, you guys can ask any questions, comments. Anything is perfect right now until we're done feeding this guy.
May Gibson asks, when you slit the skins, does the skins come off easily when you cook them?
Yeah, usually if you cook them and you boil your water, I always like to make, like, I cut the top off, or I cut that that little spot where it was hanging on the plant off right there. And then I basically will put it in, slip the skins, and just pull them off. It's not too hard, but this is way easier. This is like less time to me, so I haven't really slipped the skin in a long time. You can also do this if you want your salsa to have less stuff in it. You can do that as well. So, like I said, the more liquid that you drain off of this right here, it's just going to be more or less this thick pulp right here that's coming out, or this thick meaty sauce right here coming out. And that's what you really want. Okay, so I got my sauce done. I'm going to let that go for a little bit. Go ahead, Robert.
Brett Manzares asks, do you run the pulp through twice to get all the juice?
I mean, you can. It's really pretty basically drained out. This one's really nice. It does have a little bit of liquid left in it, but usually when I do the KitchenAid, basically it has basically a lot less than that. Okay, so I'm gonna turn that guy off. Go ahead, Robert.
Are you gonna be doing sauce with meat or without meat today?
Without meat today. Okay, so in our spaghetti sauce recipe, it called for the 30 pounds of tomatoes, 1 chopped onion, 5 cloves of garlic, 1 pound of fresh mushrooms if you want to add that, a cup of chopped onions, chopped peppers, and then 1/4 oil, oregano, parsley, pepper, salt, sugar. So I'm not going to use all those. You can. Please follow the recipe as much as you can. That way you know it's safe. I'm not going to add brown sugar to it. I'm not going to add the oil to it. I'll add that stuff when I start to cook it because I've been doing this sauce for a long time. And so to me it's really safe. But I definitely encourage you to follow the recipe as much as you can. But basically what I do is I do my sauce. I cut up all my onions. I cube them up. I chop up all my peppers, sweet peppers. If you want to put hot peppers in there, you can. Spice it up a little bit. It's up to you. I add in basil. This is all nice chopped basil. And I add in garlic. So, all of this stuff that I'm showing you has been locally sourced. Like I said earlier, I fish traded O'Gorman for a bunch of tomatoes and for the basil, for the onions, for the garlic, and the peppers. He has everything. So you're gonna go to O'Gorman's and you wanna make some sauce, or if you have all these tomatoes, but you don't have the basil, or the onions or peppers, you know, source it from your local farmer, or if you grew it yourself. So that's why I'm going to be using all of these recipes that are super, super fresh. I don't have to go and buy something from the store to put into this recipe. So I add all that stuff in, and then I'll simmer the sauce. And what you really want to do, this is super important when you're doing spaghetti sauce, is to simmer for a couple hours on a low heat. You don't want to boil the heck out of it because, one, it's going to get all over the place. But two, it's also, you know, you have what do you call, more burn of your sauce capabilities when you boil it too high, as opposed to when you're simmering too. Like we said earlier, a lot of this this liquid is taking out of this tomato. When you're simmering too, a lot of that liquid dissipates or dissolves from you boiling it and simmering it. So once I add all those things in too, to me, honestly, you can add more or less of what you want to add in that part of this recipe. I add more of bell peppers if I want. I add more of the parsley because we're really pressure canning this, and the pressure can is going to do a lot to it. I've been making this recipe for a long time, a lot of years, so I'm pretty confident in it. But as a master food preserver, putting on that hat, I always have to tell you guys to go with the recipe. But as a community member and as a person that deals with food on a day-to-day basis, you know, this is what you can do. You can utilize this and make it and deal with it. Some people's families don't like onions. You know, some people's families don't like bell peppers. You don't have to put those things in there, you know. So, anyways, these are the onions that O'Gorman had yellow onion, sweet pepper, he had, and garlic. So I'm gonna add all that into my sauce I just made. But like Rachel Ray, I already have it. So this sauce is done. All nice and ready for today. This is my first batch. Now, Megan's got another thing. One of my favorite things is these spoons right here. I love them for many reasons. I love them for many reasons. A lot of it's just to scoop out all my stuff, but look how great that sauce looks. It is beautiful, nice and
great.
thick, already done, already ready. So, I basically get my quart, I take my sauce, and then I just add it in.
You learning something over there?
Now you can really finely chop up your basil if you want. My sous chefs today were Raymond and Antonio. So they're a little bit bigger chops, chops of the onion and stuff. That's fine. It's gonna be all right. It won't matter. And we're gonna fill it up. And the recipe says, I forgot the headspace on this one. It is 1 inch. So that means that whole top end right there. And you definitely want to follow that because spaghetti sauce, once it's heated and boils, it splats. It splatters, right? So it's going to splatter while it's in this pressure cooker. Which I got to turn that back on. So 1 inch headspace, right up to that rim. Any questions or comments?
Smells great.
Smells great? It is. It's good.
So when you do the water bath, it doesn't. The headspace is not that critical.
It is, yeah.
It is
So
so
when you
critical.
do it, yeah, usually like jams or jellies will tell you like the headspace is
It's
well,
different.
too.
Usually it's a little bit different. It's a little bit smaller. But yeah, every single recipe you will ever do, canning wise, water bath or pressure canning, will always have a required headspace. It's required. It's not recommended. It's a requirement.
Yeah, like it because of the fact that it just depends on what you're making, and if that product can get underneath that rim right there and
You
damage
want it to seal,
your,
too.
your seal. Yeah, so you don't want to compromise your seal. Headspace is important in that. Once we ladle it all in, like I said, this spoon's awesome. It can scoop around the sides of the wall of your stock pot. It's amazing. And there's 4, and we're still going. Probably looks like 5 or 6. So by the time I'm done with all these tomatoes, which were 2 boxes, I'm looking at about a case of sauce. To me, that's awesome. With limited amount of waste. So like you can see, there wasn't a ton of waste. I know people are thinking, well, what if you're spitting out all that waste? Well, it's really not a lot. And if you have pigs or animals, pigs, goats, chickens, whatever, they're gonna enjoy it too.
You can always put it in your compost too.
Yep.
If you grow gardens, you can use that in your compost.
So I've been simmering this sauce all morning because I did this last night. I sauced it last night and I put it in this pot, and then I simmered it all morning with all the stuff in there, all the goodies, and here we are. Getting pretty low on there. Now if you have a little left over, don't worry, because you got your next batch coming. Just put it aside. If your next batch is taking a long time, you can just put this in the fridge too. Yeah?
Oh, that was the question pretty much. It said, May Gibson asked, if you don't have enough to fill the jars, can you just seal it anyways?
So, not really recommended to fill the jar halfway, but if you have, like, say this is a pint left, you can just throw it in a pint. If not, I just set it aside and use it for later. Yep.
And it's always good, if you do have it, I would just put a jar lid on it and just keep it for a week. It'll stay good for about a week, and then you can use it then. But you got to eat it within that week or it's going to go no good.
towel and go around the rim. Can you see it? Around the rim.
Damp
My
paper
sauce.
towel.
This one doesn't have to be damp. I like to use damp ones when I'm doing jams and jellies because jam and jelly is sticky, and with a dry paper towel, it just sticks to it. This one is not so bad because it's not a sticky sauce, but yeah, you can damp it if you want. That's not a problem. You just want to go around the rim. Oh, I forgot one thing. Oh, never mind. You don't need to add the salt into here. So, and that's why I salt my sauce up. I also add like garlic salt, pepper, any of those type of seasonings too as well. But once yep.
So after you're done filling them up and you do that, do you debubble them?
No, because the sauce is not as it doesn't have a lot of air like the actually I feel like I can add some more. It doesn't have any air pockets because it's not like a lot of tomatoes in here. So when you stack tomatoes on each other, they create these air pockets, right? And those air pockets are what you're trying to get out, because air is the biggest food, basically the food, what do you call it, when it starts to break down. It helps the food decay more with the air. I just did a little bit more, but that's all right. Let me get another paper towel.
You gotta clean it again.
I fit it all in there. I'll fix it all.
You want to make sure you're 100% clean around the rim or your jar will not seal.
Yep, very important.
All the debris you want to get off there.
You know, I had the kids helping me with fish the other day, and they were putting their lids on, and one of the fish did not seal. It's been a long time before that happened, so now I know next time I do it, I gotta go check these kids' check their skills.
This fish is very oily too.
Yep.
Oil to it.
There's some sauce on that top of that again.
How hard do you have to tighten your jars?
So you want to go to where it meets the point of resistance, right there, and then finger tight. You don't want to over tighten your jar. That's why they invented those. They're like a jar opener, because people just use like He-Man strength on their jars, and they don't need that. Just basically take it till it meets the point of resistance, and one more little click over.
Finger tight.
Finger tight. Not He-Man tight.
And if you over tighten it, the air won't come out of the jar, and that's what you want. That's what's gonna seal it.
Yep, exactly.
So never tighten your jars too tight or it won't seal.
Okay, I started boiling my water over here for you guys. You add about enough water like to kind of give it like an inch on the bottom around the jars into your canner. So, like I said, right here, when we're lifting our jar into the canner, I am not going to tip this jar. I am going to be as robotic as I can to set it in. You know, everybody has a top hood to their stove. Do not tip underneath that hood. Come here, right here, and go back. When you tip, you have possibly tipped sauce into the seal. So,
Don't drop them in there either.
nope, don't drop it in there either. It's not very safe. So just loading them in. As you guys can see, you can come on over here, Robert.
So I got another question.
Go for it.
May Gibson asks, how long do the sealed foods last if sealed properly?
Usually the general timeline for any processed food is 2 years. If you have it longer, just make sure that you look at your jar, whatever it is, and you analyze it to make sure that basically it doesn't look like it's green or look like it's not good. So
Another
basically-
question.
Go for it.
Cherokee Lane Bear asks, can you cook again if it doesn't seal?
You can. You can reprocess it again. You just need a new lid. Where is my...
Question, man.
Yeah.
I noticed how much water did you put in there? I know the hot
Up
water
to-
bath that goes over the top.
Yeah, up to about an inch right here of the side of the jar. Whatever jar it is.
And you'd already had that heating? The water was boiling in there?
Yeah, just because I'm doing it live. You don't have to do that. I just did it because it's live. And I don't want to like have a lot of people waiting for it to start boiling. So you take the All-American counter and you slide it over top. Make sure you look all around, and then you just, this is super important when you do your All-American. You have to do the the opposite side of the lid with the knobs, because if you do it like this way and that way, you're gonna end up with like lots of steam escaping from the sides.
Let me come over there and show them. So she tightened opposite sides.
Mm-hmm.
She tightened this side and that side. Let me zoom out. And then she's tightening that side and that side. At the same time too.
Yep.
And how would they do this if they didn't have one of these canners?
So if they have a regular pressure canner, just an aluminum, they just lock the lid and that's it.
Easy.
Easy.
May Gibson asks, if you stack, do you need more water?
No. As long as the bottom ones have that inch around the side, it's fine. Okay, so when you start your pressure canner, what we need to look for first, are all of if the lid is secure. Okay, watch out, carrot, you're in the ground's way. The lid is secure, right? And so we make sure all around. I'm going to try all these knobs. When you have an All-American canner, just be careful not to over tighten these knobs, because then you'll need somebody like Robert, who looks like the Hulk, to come over here and have to open this for you. Or you'll need somebody like Antonio, who looks like the baby Hulk, to come over here and untighten this for you.
Or you need the caveman himself?
Or you might need a caveman to come over and open this thing for you. Okay, so just basically you're just going to do it till it's nice and tight. You want to make sure there's no steam escaping around the side, and we're going to wait for this guy right here to start spouting off tons of steam. Once he starts spouting off steam, the recipe says that we are to pressure can at 11 pounds of pressure, or a weighted gauge, so that's that tattling gauge at 10 pounds of pressure. So we're going to do 11 pounds, and we're going to do it for 20 minutes for pints and 25 minutes for quarts. Now, say you do have a bunch of quarts, but you only ended up with 1 pint, you can put it in there, but you're still going to process it for 25 minutes. Don't go lower because you have 1 pint in there. Or if you only have 1 quart in there still, you're going to have to process it for 25 minutes. Any questions?
Now, if I was doing this recipe and I only had pint jars, could I still do it?
Yep, you can. Just anything lower than that. So like half pints, no. 8 ounces, no. Or like they do have half-gallon jars, which I probably have one. Let me see. Let me in here. See if I find mine real quick so you can see it.
So she said 11 pounds at 25 minutes?
Yep. And when you're pressure canning, you have to make sure you're watching that gauge like a hawk.
I can't find mine.
Because if it goes over, you're going to have to reprocess. And if you go under, you're going to have to reprocess. Even if it went over for a split second, you're still going to have to reprocess.
Very good point. So can you go ahead and explain that out again, Robert?
So when you're pressure canning, the book will tell you at a certain pressure. And if you don't keep that certain pressure, it won't seal. So you want to make sure you're watching that gauge like a hawk. And it kind of gives you a range of how low it can go and how high it can go. And if you go over that high or that low, then it won't properly seal. And then it'll promote foodborne illnesses to come into your jars and your canned food, so it won't properly seal. So if it goes over, or under and you see it go over or under, don't worry. You can just reprocess it, but it's just going to take the flavor
over
out.
is not so bad. You can turn it down. It's the under is
Yes.
what will get you. So if you're processing and say it's 20 minutes, right? And you come over here and you got 5 minutes left and look, oh no, my pressure counter went down to 5. Guess what?
You have to do it all over
You got to
again.
get it back up to 11 pounds of pressure and restart your entire 20-minute timer again. Important to watch your stuff, but with a pressure canner anyway, you shouldn't be too far from it anyway because you don't want it to blow up on you.
Yeah.
Now you're cooking electric stove.
Yep.
Sometimes you got to know your stove.
Yeah,
Gas,
so
I have gas.
yeah, gas, electric, it's all going to be different to find that sweet spot is what I call it. And then also too with the you know, this all-American canner, this cast iron canner, it's really great on a flat top stove. Flat tops are a little funny, like with the enamel counters or those like old school counters, the water bath ones that have like the black ones with the black lids and they have like the white speckles, they're called enamel counters. You can't use those on a flat top. They're not able to regulate the heat well. Go ahead, Robert, what was that?
Oh, someone asked a question. Do all that consists of tomatoes have to be pressure cooked?
No. If you're making salsa, you have to water bath can it. If you're making stewed tomatoes, water bath canning. It's because we're adding so many different things. We're not only adding, you know, peppers. We're adding garlic. We're adding onions. We're adding basil, and so the recipe calls for you to pressure can it. But you know, back in the day, they didn't have all kinds of pressure canners, so a lot of people did a long water bath canning. Hours of water bath canning. The pressure canner actually alleviates all of that time. Yep. Robert?
What's the best place to store canned foods after processed and cooled?
So, when you do store this, you're going to want to store your ring loose on your top, like that, loose. Because if you do store it in your house, and let's say the heat goes up to like 100 degrees or more in your house, sometimes a jar can unseal and reseal, and you'll never know it because you had your ring on tight. They say it's good just to store it without rings, but you know, who has the drawer space for a whole bunch of rings? So I just store it loosely on the top, and then once it's in there, I just, you know, you can go through, check every time, pop, 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 and if it goes titchy, like, you know, the Sorry game where you click down and the dice jump, if it pops back at you, you gotta throw that out. You don't know how long it's been unsealed there or resealed. So you just gotta keep eye on those things. They say the most ideal place to store your canned goods is underneath your bed, but like, you know, I don't have that big enough bed to have that much, but used to be root cellars. They used to have those, very nice and cool. That's where they would store everything. But I have a pantry, so I store it all in a pantry. Okay, this thing right here,
Steaming.
making all kinds of noise, all kinds of steam. I can feel it, you can hear it. So I'm going to take my weight. Now it calls for 11 pounds, but so this weight right here for the All-American, it has a 5 pound, a 10 pound, and a 15 pound. I'm going to put it on the 15 pound because we're going to go to 11 pounds of pressure. Okay, this is important. As you can see, there's no steam escaping on the sides of my canner. You want to check that out. Go for it.
If the steam was coming out the sides, what would you do?
I would take that back off and I would turn it off and fix the top. Okay? So now, I mean, right now, if I take this off, lots of pressure is going to come out. So the sooner you take it off, once you see that steam's escaping, the better. If not, if you're too afraid to remove this, because this will out, you can just turn it off and wait till you see this go down to 0. Once that's down to 0, it's safe to mess with the canner. Okay? So right now we're starting to begin our pressure climbing. I'm going to take my timer. It's right behind there. I was gonna use my phone, but Robert's got it. To time it, while we're waiting, I'm gonna add all these ingredients to the other sauce and get that started. Any questions?
Back to storage, I have a storage question. When I was done making my salsa, I just put the jars back in the box that they came with, and stacked them up. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. You just, basically you want to be wary of trying to stack too much on top of each other and the amount of weight that will be. Just because that same thing, like what was saying, you really want to just stack them without on each other. We unfortunately do not have like a space, but to do that. Eventually one of these years I would like to do that, but basically for what I do, okay, so we talked about it coming undone on its own, right? Basically what I do is like, I just go and look at everything before I open it. Like, okay, is it bubbling? That's a clear sign. Like if this is bubbling up, something's not good. There's gases in there that are not good. If it looks green all over the top, not good, don't do that. So, those are things that you can look at, surefire ways to make sure that it's nice and safe. Any other questions? Okay, so I'm gonna keep checking on that in the back. I'm gonna add all my stuff in here, and I'm gonna chop up my garlic real quick, and I'm just gonna be answering questions as you guys have them. Comments or questions? Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, I'm gonna take my garlic and I'm just gonna easy on it, smash down, smash it down, and then I'm just gonna chop it.
Having all the right tools sure makes it easier.
Yeah, having all the right tools is exactly what makes it easier. Okay.
Jericho Lane Bear asked, is it safe to release pressure by tapping that weight thing while cooking?
Usually that's a no-no. I know a lot of people do that, but you could actually really compromise the sill if you release so much pressure at one time.
You can't control how much pressure comes out.
Yeah. And so with that pressure, it could actually explode a jar too.
Oh, that's another thing, is you don't want to overheat your jars too, because it could break your jars. Mm-hmm. Then you're going to have a big old mess on your hands.
Big old mess.
So I would recommend while you're pressure canning to check on your canner
At all times.
like every 2 minutes, every 3 minutes.
Yeah, right here. You're not while it's at that 11 pounds. When you're right here, you're constantly looking at it. Because once it hits that 11 pounds of pressure, then I'm going to put my timer on for the 25 minutes, and then I'm also going to be moving the heat back and forth until I find that good spot. But, after that, you can start checking it every couple minutes. The surefire sound when your pressure cooker is off pressure is you'll hear this guy start acting crazy right here. Yep, Robert.
Penny Nordstrom asks, can you add zucchini and yellow squash or other veggies to this sauce?
It is not on the recipe on there. I wouldn't recommend it. What I would recommend is if you are going to be wanting zucchini during the winter time, that you just dehydrate that zucchini, and then you can just throw it into your spaghetti sauce later.
When the canning's done, I've seen some people try to do the cool down process quicker by pouring water over the top of it and doing different things. That's not advisable.
No, it's not advisable for many reasons. One, just the amount of, who taught me how to do that? My grandpa. He taught me how to go put your pressure cooker in there and you cool it down by pouring water over the top of it. Then I went to Master Food Preserver. They said, don't do that. So while my papa taught me how to do it like that, I understand you know, both ways. When you're doing with a lot of stuff, you want to get it in and out of your canner faster. But you know, when you do, this thing right here especially, to move that over to the sink, it's going to take a lot of manpower, but also those jars inside will move around a lot. So moving it from that point to there, you have that danger. But also they're saying, you know, Master Food Preserver wise, that temperature calming down and cooling down actually is part of the processing process. Robert?
Choco Lane Bear asks, if one jar breaks, does it ruin the whole thing?
No. As long as you do not see any type of, you know, where it just like shattered apart, it should be fine. Robert?
Deborah Hall asks, is there a recipe in the book for tomato soup or veggie soup?
I don't know. Robert, you can look.
Let me look.
Tomato soup or veggie soup?
Most likely there is.
It might be. I've never seen one. I've never tried to do one anyway.
Another question from Blaine and Jess McKinnon. Where can I purchase that book?
I'm just gonna ask that.
So you can go online and Google So Easy to Preserve. I believe So Easy to Preserve has a website called So Easy to Preserve. I don't know the exact spot, but just Google So Easy to Preserve book. And you'll know it's the right one because it's made by the University of Georgia. So that's what you want to look for. Now I got all my sauce done. You guys can see right there. Oh, it's at 10 now. It is nice and ready to start simmering.
Yes, there is a vegetable soup in here, but I do not see a tomato soup. So, yeah, just look in your book, or is there any websites you can check and see if there's any recipes?
So we're at 11 pounds of pressure. I'm just going to turn my canner down to, you want to zoom in over here or bring it over? I'm just going to turn it down to the next level down. I'm going to stay right here because I'm not going to move. If you turn it down too fast, like say you get to 11 pounds of pressure and you turn it down to medium after it's on high, don't do that because it's just going to drop your pressure really fast. So you just want to ease it down every little bit of click. So right there, I'm going to leave it there for a second because I can see my 11-pound gauge is at the right spot. I started my timer, 25 minutes. And so soon it should be nice and processed. I'm going to start simmering this. Robert, go.
So is there any way, a place online where I can look at approved recipes, or I can get approved recipes?
Then you should know that one. The National Center for Home Preservation. It's a website also developed by the University of Georgia. Carm can put the link in the Facebook feed to go to there, or I can afterwards. Go for it.
May Gibson asks, so is it absolutely necessary to follow the recipe?
It is, yeah. Especially if you're brand new at it, follow the recipe. You don't want to, do anything that could possibly bring a foodborne illness into your home. So yes, it is very important. Go for it.
Carla Moon asks, do you need space in between your jars?
Usually no. I'm gonna turn this down a little bit more. Usually no, because you just basically want it to just fit in there uniformly. You don't want a ton of space in between your jars. The reason being is they can tip. So like all this loose space in there, you'll have more tippage, especially because this is under an immense amount of pressure. And so you're just going to want to not, make sure that it doesn't rattle. Especially when you're water bath canning too, it rattles a lot. The jars move pretty rapidly, so you don't want to do that. Any more questions? I'm just going to finish the rest of these tomatoes out.
No more questions.
So basically what I'm doing is I am going to be looking and watching my canner at this time. Oops.
That's not good.
Spill some juice. And that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to try to do two things at one time, which I always do. And I'm going to just try to start feeding the rest of this into there so I can put it in with my other sauce. I won't waste nothing. Any other questions? Comments? Good time to ask right now while we're trying to find that sweet spot. Alright,
I don't see no more questions.
so basically, what's going to happen after the 25 minutes? We turn it down a little bit more. So it says 11 pounds, but I really just like it to be between that 10 and 15 pounds of pressure. If it stays in there, I'm fine with that. If it goes above that, this 15-pound weight right here that I was talking about will start rattling all around, and that's a sure sign to get over here really quick, Megan, and go check your canner. So that's like if you're sitting down watching TVs while you're processing, and I always like to have my canner kind of facing where I'm sitting at. That way I can watch it while this processing time goes forth. And then once I do that, basically this is all I do is make sure it sits in between there, and that way I know it's going to be good. Robert?
Glenn Moore asks, what other stuff can you do with the ball sauce maker?
You can make applesauce. You can, you can make all kinds of different sauces. Applesauce is a great one. You can make this like a salsa. You can just do tomato sauce with it, just regular tomato sauce. Let's see what else you can throw in there. There's so many things. It comes with like a big old book of recipes on it, so I haven't went through them all. But mainly mine is like tomato sauce, spaghetti sauce, and applesauce. But you can do your salsas in there too. Like if you're a type of person that just likes
Oh no.
see? You hear that sound? Exactly what I'm saying. Do not panic. This is not a time to panic. You just turn it down and you just watch it.
It'll calm down.
It'll calm down. It's not gonna go anywhere.
It's not a bomb.
Once it hits that caution right there, that's when you're gonna be afraid. But I'm gonna be afraid until this guy in the backpack here explodes. Then I'm gonna be really afraid. If that happens, I'm gonna do the best I can do to turn this off and walk away, because it will explode. It's not, will it? It will. So, that's just if it gets over this caution area. We got a long way for it to get to there. So you should be fine. Robert?
That's why you always want to be checking your pressure cooker.
That's why you stand right here.
That's why you're always keeping an eye on it, or that's...
Always. And so, I just turn it down. It's going to calm down here in a second. It's going to be back to normal.
It's already calming down.
I think a lot of people get to that panic stage with pressure cookers. They're like, ah! Don't do that. You're good. You're fine. Robert?
Blaine and Jess McKinnon asks, has it ever exploded on you before?
No. But that's just because I hit that over there. Should be fine. Okay. True story. My grandpa gave me this little teeny type of pressure canner, right? And he said, maybe you can make beans in this. So I was like, okay, Papa, I'll make beans. I've never used one of these. They don't have a gauge on them before. So I was like, cool, I'll make beans, Papa. And so I was making beans, and guys like, should we turn those beans off? I said, no, let's leave it on for 10 more minutes. Pretty soon, it exploded. And guess what? It didn't explode in a scary way. It exploded all over the top of my roof, all over my kitchen cabinets, all around right here. And my husband had to run over there like, you know, like he was in special ops. Move it aside. So it's the only time that's ever happened to me. Sorry to say that pressure canner never made it through this next cycle of beans.
You have to be vigilant and watch your canner.
That's a canner's worst nightmare right there.
So yeah, back then I had a more of a white color in my kitchen, and you could see all that splatter way up there. It was not cool, man. It was not cool. So yes, they can. That's why I feel, to me, more comfortable with these gauges on there, because that one didn't have a gauge. All it had was that little thing on top of it. Scary. Robert?
Is the pressure gauge always accurate, or do I need to get that checked every so often?
It's pretty much accurate. I've never noticed anybody's to not act, right. But one way that you know that is while you're starting to can, right? This thing won't move. It's not gonna move if it's broken. So if it starts, or like say it's like cooled off and it's at 10, right? It's stuck, it's broken, and it's like you just took it out of storage. So yeah, you're probably gonna have to replace it. Robert?
Do you want to check your pressure gauge every once in a while, or is it good, do you think?
You can clean it, you know. This one, you can take the knob off and you can clean it around. The aluminum canners that you're gonna get, it's in the center of it, and you actually have to put it on, and there's like a gasket on the screw, and so you can check those gasket. It's just like a canner. You just want to visually check out your canner. You know, these things, like this one especially, is really heavy duty, and it's less likely to, if it got banged something or dropped, that it will dent. But like your aluminum canners, they could dent, you know, the lids can dent, all that kind of stuff. And I have a bunch of kids that somewhat are, you know, not as cautious when they do dishes. And so sometimes they can bang things apart. So you just want to visually inspect all that. But the main obvious thing is when you get it going and there's like steam escaping around the side, or just things are not acting right. We're good right there. Yeah.
Athena Dove asks, can you can outside on a camp stove instead of inside, or will it cook differently?
Well, so a master food preserver says that you're not supposed to can outside because you can't stop any of the, you know, things that could affect it, like flies or whatever. But yeah, the difference is it electric or is it propane? So there is going to be a difference when you're dealing with those two stable heat sources. So like, you know, you're going to have to visually keep an eye on your, you know, your canner and stuff while you're cooking, no matter where you cook at. That's, you know, so it's just going to do the same. It don't cook faster. Everyone's on a timer. Auntie?
What about elevations? I mean, Cardinals guys live up on Ball Hill.
Yeah, very important point. Very important point. So, on the valley floor, we don't have to worry about this. But when you
We're
are
at sea level, I think.
canning, you do per elevation. Let me see where it's at. Let's see.
Ball Hill will be a little bit higher above us. So I imagine their cooking times are different.
Would be slower time, I bet, huh?
Yeah, so like you usually add, it doesn't say it on this one.
It could change the pressure and it could change the time.
Usually it's about 5 minutes per 1,000 to 3,000. So below 1,000 feet, we're fine. But when you go 1,000 to 3,000, they'll change the time in minutes. But I'm trying to find it on here. I just see tomato juice, tomato sauce, seasoned. Oh, okay. So for quarts, you add an extra 5 minutes on it, and then for the pints as well, per 1,000 to 3,000, and then 3,000 to 6,000, you do the same thing. You add an extra 5 minutes. So there's altitude changes. Just make sure that you're in altitude of, you know, the lower levels. If you're gonna just use the 25, if you're above that 1,000 feet and up, you're gonna add 5 minutes to until you get to 3,000 feet. 3,001 foot, you're gonna add 10 minutes, and then so forth. So just make sure you keep an eye on that. We got some time. All right, so I'm just gonna be here waiting for the canner to stop. If you guys don't have any more questions, I'm just gonna say thank you guys for attending. We really appreciate it. Karma is going to send you guys a link for a survey. Please fill out your survey, and then you guys can set up the times to pick up your canner if you're signed up for the canner portion. If you're just basically here and you're enjoying the show with us, I like to know where you're watching from. So if you can like put out there like where you're watching from, where you're joining us from, I really appreciate that. This will be posted on this page, the Cooking Healthy in Indian Country. You can rewatch it, like say, oh man, I forgot what Megan said there. When you're doing it, and you can just be like, oh, let me go rewatch it. You can also do that there. But also keep in mind too, like if you have questions that maybe weren't answered while I did this, like you can definitely message me or Carm and ask us questions, or Robert, and we'll be able to answer those questions to the best of our ability. you know, I appreciate all of you guys joining on with me. I hope that everybody has a good rest of their September, and hopefully the kids and everything that's going on in life, you know, really start to sit back and just enjoy each other and stop stressing about the way that things are. Canning is a good way to get over that kind of stress, especially in a world as crazy it is right now with the COVID and just all the things that are happening. Canning is a definite resource that can help you to kind of get your mind occupied and off of those distractions of life. But it's also like you're providing that connection and that greatness of food to your family. It just brings that joy and that like peace and that comfort back that you're missing, you know, in this world. So, you know, utilize these things, do it, you know, enjoy your canning, and thanks for joining us, guys. See
Bye.
ya.